Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Milwaukie Poetry Series here on December 10th. We're delighted to be here tonight as we continue our 19th season. I'm Tom Hogan. I'm the coordinator of the series, and I just really want to thank you for being here and being in the seats and coming out and hearing poetry, because as we know, there are a lot of things on our demand our time. There's a lot of things that we're interested in. We easily could be spending time doing one of those, and we're not. We're taking an evening, and we're out listening to poetry and being in community. So thank you so much. I want to extend that, too, to those of you that are on the live stream. So thank you very much for logging in. And the same thing is thank you for spending the time with a poet and hearing poetry. I'm going to introduce our poet in just a minute, but before I do that, I want to make some thanks. We want to thank the City of Milwaukie first, and the City of Milwaukie has been supportive of us from the beginning. We're just absolutely delighted about that. We want to say thanks to the city. Secondly, to the Lighting Library, and you see it here. I was talking to someone before the reading, and yes, it has been here 5 years. It doesn't seem like 5 years. For all of us who have worked on it, it seems like this is a new library. So this is a new library. It fits on the footprint here. It's got if you haven't seen it, come back during the daylight sometime. And it's got a great connection down here to the park. A lot better than the old library had. Lovely though it was. So thanks to the Lighting Library. Thanks to the Poetry Committee. We have a Milwaukie Poetry Series Poetry Committee. And I always say, we need to have people working on something to make it happen. And so we do. And one of our members is standing here, Kristen, and my lovely wife, Jane, who is right here. And she was responsible for the refreshments. So I'll call your attention to the refreshments. We have some over there. Help yourself to them now or at the end of the event. That's what they're there for. And finally, we have our magician back here with the earphones on, Josh Reynolds. He's from Willamette Falls Media Studios. Let's give Josh a hand. Yeah. So thank you very much. He's the one that makes this all go and makes us look good. I want to remind you about telephonic devices. I found mine, fortunately. But, oh my gosh. Well, you see, we want to have this happen now. Right, Scott? We don't want to have calls when you're reading. So there's that, and a couple of events that are coming up on our reading in January. We're going to be hosting the Poet Laureate, Ellen Waterston, and she's going to be here on the second Wednesday of January. Then the following Sunday, we are sponsoring again this year a William Stafford session, a birthday celebration. So there will be a featured readers for the birthday celebration, and then there will be an open mic after that, in which the focus will be on reading Bill Stafford's poetry. So, and there'll be an announcement out about both of those. We do have a flyer for the Milwaukie Poetry Series if you want to take one, and especially if you have someplace to put it up or someone you would like to hand it to and say, here's the Milwaukie Poetry Series, and please take them and do that. So it's my pleasure to introduce our poet tonight. This is Scott's third time reading over the course of these years, and we've been excited to have him here. Scott's a city planner, educator, and author of 4 full-length poetry collections, including Tender Currencies, 2025, from Moonpath Press, winner of the Sally Albiso Poetry Book Award. Previous volumes include A Constellation of Extinct Stars and Other Poems, 2016. Thousands Flee California Wildflowers, both from Salmon Poetry. He works with writing, The Land, which pairs poets with land trusts nationwide. His poems appear in many journals, including TriMet's Light Rail Orange Line. You may have seen some of his works. And I think that's a, okay. Scott's going to tell you a little about that. So we do have some slides that he is showing. He has received fellowship residencies with Playa at Summer Lake and Oregon State University's Spring Creek Project, and previously published the poetry journal Unified Country Review. Scott was born in Oakland, California, grew up in the Bay Area and the mountains around Lake Tahoe, and has lived in the Pacific Northwest since 1987. He has 2 grown daughters, and he is fairly recently married, I believe. So we want to welcome Kristen Berger. And you can tell us how long you've been married. 3 months? Congratulations. Yeah, that's great. Would you join me in welcoming our poet tonight, Scott Siegel. Scott.
Thanks, Tom. It appears we have an update for you. So that's actually unplanned, but perfect in the spirit of poetry, having an untitled slideshow. It's awesome, actually, because as Tom mentioned in the introduction, and some of you may recall, I used to publish an online poetry journal called Untitled Country Review, so that's what that's about. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. This is really a tremendous honor. I'm on an 8-year schedule, so I was here in, I don't know, whatever 16 years ago was, and then I came back 8 years ago, and now I'm here this evening to, and it's really an honor to be able to read for you. So what I have this evening, and I brought it all, so, but I only have 40 minutes, so what I'd like to do is share with you sort of in two bundles or batches, and I thought about, I'm not going to really address current events because I think it's too much and we're all steeped in it, and instead I'm going to go to a place where I think poetry can also take us. And I was thinking about sort of 2 ideas or threads, maybe a paradox, maybe not, and that is just grounding and how we ground ourselves in our lives and in the world, whether it's a sense of place or whether it's a ritual or a practice, something that occurs on a regular schedule or not, or just our observations of the world and the joy that we can take away at any time, and it doesn't require any planning. So this is a city planner telling you, don't plan. Just be alive and be present in the world with the people you love, or even just by yourself, be present. So this notion of grounding, and on the other hand, the passage of time, which we're all keenly aware of, and with technology and everything else that is accelerating that, how do we sort of stay grounded with the passage of time, or as time is passing, what sort of touchstones or poems perhaps can keep us grounded and keep us moving forward and healthy. So I have, I think, 9 or 10 poems from this most recent collection, Tender Currencies, and then I have a group of poems that are sort of collected from other books. And what I found when I put together this book, Tender Currencies, it is I wouldn't call it a collection. I wouldn't call it collected. poems. But in some ways, it's sort of over time as I've put together different volumes of poetry, and some sort of have a more sort of cohesive theme or voice, and you know, and I thought, well, that kind of stands on its own, and it's a body of work, and that's fine. But I always find myself coming back to where I left off. You know, it's like, I think William Stafford said, well, my books are my whole life, and I'm just breaking off chunks or pieces of it, and there's a piece of it. And so I do find that I come back to work that I've done. And this book does have earlier poems and some that have been reworked and edited, and that's fine. So I'll start with, oh, and incidentally, what you're seeing up here, and this will sort of rotate through, are some images from places that certain poems in this collection were inspired by, and also just my thought process and my artistic practice. And the cover art for this book I created through photography and the manipulation of photographs. And these were some thought experiments that didn't make it onto the cover, but you're getting to see those too. So, High Country. I need to find a different line of work, one that measures progress in footfall, elevation gain and descent through transects of biome and microclimate, hurried season of bees and hummingbirds holding summer's frame still at eye level. Wildflower sex at the speed of glacial till, and glaciers clinging still to the craggy roof of the world. I could make a career of camp setup and takedown, scouting food cache and unmapped spring, tracking huckleberries and morels, wading cool currents gathered in a loose shirt, casting with Angus's brown topless girl who divines bull trout from an emerald pool with a cane pole and red berry. I must begin and end each day like this, beside a ring of river stone, feasting on a small steely fire of my own making. A paved path. And this has an epigraph by Eva Salitis. If I speak for the earth, I must sing. This nature park, nearly as large as the hole in the heart of the forest that was originally here, holds black-tailed deer, coyotes, and maybe a cougar. Twisted mole bone and fur scat litter the verge. Splotches of hawthorn berries mark my walk. Lazuli buntings flounce upon the willows and graze on cinnabar caterpillars ravaging the tansy ragwort. Blue-faced, copper-chested, weighing less than this pencil. Buntings sing a sweet, swishing, melodic squeegee song, pine top to pine top. They know more about fickle jet streams and ocean warming than hundreds of weather apps. In the after-work human crush for fresh air, I must get my steps in and take good care of this heart that limps along like an old black lab. Not complaining, I live in this world and therefore have a high pain threshold. There's too much at stake. We think we are not always free to love, yet buntings await. At this moment, some blaze through the oaks unbeknownst to those on electric bicycles. I do my part, keep my head on a swivel, and try not to look down at my phone so much. So grounding and trying to be present in the world. This is transpiration, and so this is after Graham Oaks, which is a Metro Nature Park in Wilsonville, and it's a place where we spend a lot of time, and it's just very accessible. It's about a 3-mile loop or 5 miles if you're a runner, like my partner. I'm a walker. And there's just a lot going on out there in that little nature park that voters have approved and set aside as an open space. Transpiration. Even on a fierce day like this, hottest year on record, a parched clattering of stunted oaks, brittle fescue, and burnt June grass. A breeze foretells earth's tilt, delighting the cabbage-white butterfly, an invasive, whose rice paper wings arch inside an umbril of Queen Anne's lace, also invasive. Now a loose strand of wind teases thousands of tiny florets that shiver like stars or snow, and the sentinel oaks know there are no happy or sad endings to this story that moves water from one delicate body to another. And this is on the broadside, the little broadside that is available for all of you who are here in person. Climate song. She keeps daffodil bulbs in the freezer and never plants them. Spring knocks earlier each year, but withers into summer before it can begin. Wildfire ash accumulates like snow until November rains wash it away. Winter comes in episodic tantrums with hail verging on snow before railing back to rain, a year's worth of rain in 10 days. She resists, an essential little act. Scions of forsythia and quince bloom from a crystal vase placed in the shop front window. So one of the projects that I've been privileged to work on and to be included in is this Writing the Land initiative, which is a nationwide project. And it's, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name, maybe. Anyway, yeah, so anyway, so there are poets all over the country who are paired with land trusts and conservancies, and in our case with a state agency to write poems that are inspired by or after different nature preserves that are stewarded by a variety of groups. And so I was paired with and actually Kristen Berger and another poet from our area, and I'm forgetting, Brittany Corrigan. The three of us were all sort of teamed up to work with the Mackenzie River Trust in Lane County. Actually, Mackenzie River Trust stewards lands beyond Lane County, and they do work on the coast, and they do a lot of work in the Willamette Valley. And this was for the Confluence Project, which is the area that I was focusing on, is at the confluence of the coast and middle forks of the Willamette. And it's just a very interesting spot with industrial history and a lot of heritage and cultural history. Confluence for the Mackenzie River Trust. I was prepared for the bitterness of creosote when I plucked the one with mustard wings, black rings, and red spots around the eye. When I smudged it and rubbed the sticky resin over my thumb, I felt the warmth and weight of a century between the Kalapuya roasting tarweed seed on a gravel bed, salmon pushing upriver, and the abandoned quarry turned muddy conservancy land transfer. Tarweed grows wildly, if sparingly, on the toe slope of white oak savanna. I'm snapping pictures of flowers when Holly points at the gate and says, "We could use more eyes on the site." The climate is changing, migrating north, and her gaze at the land is deeper than time when she says, "Black might be better than white oak for the future ecological plan. Better adapted to shifting latitudes. I'm searching for an eddy now, a quiet spot where I might glimpse a great blue heron or the brown blur of an otter in the glimmer of midday sun. But the river is a straight shot. The BPA easement bisects riparian swath under the hum of power transmission lines. Public access is prohibited, but the Trust is working on that. They have a vision, educational programming, sitting in nature while being Black, brown, or indigenous, stewardship as inclusive access, experiential learning. Here, where the Middle and Coast Forks meet, is the confluence of trust and reconciliation, reconnecting to natural systems, repair and adaptation. This is where the healing begins. Trust in the unstraightening of rivers, trust in the sweet labor of volunteers, trust when they breach the dike for beavers, nature's master engineers, trust in the river's muscle, heart, and lungs. I should not have been surprised by the diligence and patience of the Trust or the gentle citrus scent of tarweed. And there was a talk put on by OSU recently about tarweed and camas, Camiscia, which were native and are still very important native food plants and fiber and are used for a lot of different things, medicinal purposes as well. So if you're interested in learning more about tarweed, that's available. So poetry, there's no such thing as light poetry, right? A shaft of darkness runs through everything. So, this is the blue whale and her diamonds. And it's not really an epigraph, it's just a quotation from the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory that follows the title, and it says, Voyagers, remember Voyager, the space exploration craft that went out? Voyager's message is carried by a phonograph record, a 12-inch gold-plated copper disc containing sounds and images selected to portray the diversity of life and culture on Earth. 12-inch disc. Voyager reaches deep into space, the deepest ever, the junior news anchor reports. But I think he means yet, because isn't the universe expanding, all matter projecting from one vertex on a radial course for discovery, if not destiny? Voyager drifts deeper toward infinity, traversing interstellar space, yet is unable to procreate. What makes this vessel more significant than the rest? The zebra mussel hitches a ride from Korea to Seattle in the bilge of a ship. Real pioneer. In a corner of the wharf, a tsunami ripped loose, crosses the Pacific with an aquarium of radioactive fish in its cavity. Space station, right here on Earth. There's a strange grace in the blinding of Voyager. Infrared spectrometer and radiometer shut down for now. I don't like space junk, obscuring the night sky, ghost nets strangling puffins, or islands of plastic clogging the intestines of the largest animals on Earth. It is difficult to sort out. I'd like to believe stars twinkle not from a child's wish or a mother's prayer or the air itself obscured by pollution, but the unending stream of unknown particles coming between us and them, micro shards of galactic mass, bits of stone, iron, and glass, and traces of oxygen and ice. I love how they disrupt the light and make the dark sky dance. So, Okay, so now a little bit autobiographical, I suppose. My dad grew up in Michigan, and his father was in the sort of hunting, fishing, hardware, all-purpose general store business in Saginaw. And they had a hunting lodge up in northern, I guess it would be the upper part of the lower peninsula of Michigan, where they would take clients out and canoe down the Osable River and go duck hunting and do all that. And I never spent any time out there, really. I went out there when I was 3, and then I went back for my grandmother's funeral. But I've always had this affinity for the outdoors and, do all those things, except for hunting. I'm not a big hunter. But I've always sort of wondered, like, well, I wonder what that area is really like. And so when Kristen and I had an opportunity to go out there visiting her family, we did spend some time in that part of the country. And I was thinking about Jim Harrison, this poet who hails from that area too. And it was really it was a very special thing to go back there and to see this river, where my grandpa and everyone spent a lot of time. So it moved me. But this poem I wrote before I went out there. So I've been thinking about this for a long time, and then more recently I did go out there and visited the site and then put this in the book. It's called Bringing You Home, and it has an epigraph by Jim Harrison. So Bringing You Home, and he says, "I've decided that when I die, I get to see all my beloved dead people and also my bird dogs that died if I don't fuck up." That's Jim Harrison. When I die, I'm going straight to Michigan to see my dad's hunting dogs. His father's too. Maybe we'll all hunt together, 12 gauges slung over our similarly cockeyed shoulders as Grandpa beats a path through ash and sumac beside the Osable's black-green glare. Maybe in that burnt tire of a backcountry where our parents still know each other and some have reconciled, dogs run from house to house, lapping up food scraps and licking our faces. Maybe they know how it is with us, that we had to hide our love for 7 lifetimes. And now we can't help but make the furniture creak as we sleep, and they grin when we rise from the breakfast table, satiated and still starry from the night, then glint and scurry with mugs of coffee sloshing out to the back 40,000 acres of state lands where the dim and declawed revenant moon skips over the tips of jack pines, trying to keep up with the long train of pointers and retrievers in our wake. So, thanks. And here's just a sweet little poem. I think it's sweet, that I wrote when we were out there at Kristen's family's home ground and lake cabin. Kleber Pond is what it's called. And I wrote this poem. There's actually some artwork that'll come up here, and it's from that area. It's called Lake Effect. And these are, if you're interested in this sort of thing, they're 6 stanzas, and actually each is 3 lines, and each actually works as a haiku technically, because they're 5, 7, 5 syllables, and loosely, we'll say. So Lake Effect. The night wind unwinds, rousing our neighbors' voices, the heat wave breaking. Remember the lake? Stars swarming like caddisflies, kissing the surface. The wind did not sleep, moving endlessly between overheated rooms. That might only be 4 syllables. The wind did not sleep, moving endlessly between overheated rooms of aspen and pine, seeking schist or granite slab, a place to lie down. Let's find some relief. Slip into bathymetric days. Let the breeze barter uncharted stars for night swimmers far from the dock. let minnows caress our toes. And the last poem that I'll read from this first sort of batch that we're calling Grounding is the title poem of the book, Tender Currencies. And it has a lead-in, and these are in couplets, and it has a lead-in couplet that is in the voice of someone who's addressing the poet or addressing the speaker, and then the poem falls. So, Tender Currencies. What have you done on the scale of life, and have I mattered? Some compose symphonies, others paint or sing in the shower. We piece together words. You swivel your hip over a meadow. You swivel your hips over a meadow, and your skirt brushes my wrist. I write that down. You place your hand on my chest and press lightly. My hand instinctually moves to your waist. I note that too. When our free hands meet at the curve of your back, I drop my pen and rest there. Sometimes we slope into each other like one animal, dozing. I've lost track of how many times we've succumbed. Now a gang of cedar waxwings run off with my notes and scatter my ashes over Lake Tahoe. If I go first, I will be sad in a blue but content way. If you were to love another this strongly and gently after I'm gone, I would be happy for you, but bluer than the depths of this lake. Every day you matter immensely, so much so that you are sitting across from me now in the same room, writing this down too, but with a slightly different lilt in your pen that says, I love you in fewer words, so deeply this map unfolds forever. Thank you. So now we're on to the passing of time, the passage of time. And this is a poem from long ago, and it's after my daughter Caroline when she was 9 years old, and she's, well, I don't want to disclose that on live streaming, but she's decades older than that now. So we fill our pockets. And I've added an epigraph or a quote by William Stafford, who said, all things, even the rocks, make a little noise. I love that. So we fill our pockets. You were in bed hiding. A storm of your own making builds outside the window. Dreams like bats tug our tents and browse the yard. We are geologists. We fill our pockets with carnelian agates and less beautiful specimens, clamshells split and riddled by sea lice, false fossils, bits of iron slag we haul in t-shirt rucksacks from the shoreline. We hold our currency close, talismans to ward off nightmares and stranger premonitions. We care for stones like brittle birds, the way I care for these words, little glass origami I carry down the mountain to tell you someday. Oh. Okay, so this poem is dedicated to my late best friend John and his late wife Jill. And I actually wrote it for their wedding, or their wedding rehearsal dinner is what the title of the poem. Words for the wedding rehearsal dinner for John and Jill. They say every 7 years the body renews itself. One by one, every cell's replaced until your childhood, a shadow in the foreground, looks on, unrecognizable even to itself. That's why a moment is a miracle. Bay winds have ceased. Bees, drunk on blue hyacinths, have fallen to the ground, their tiny wings arrested. And every cell in you stands still, aglow, and we can tell. So we're going to go even further back in time. So we're talking about the passage of time. We're going to rewind it. And this is roll call. Did every name have a fragrance then? And why does Aaron still linger so? Every day we'd pledge allegiance to our names in alphabetical order. The S's had to be patient. I didn't mind. I waited, hands folded, eyes almost closed, my nose attuned to the girl in front of me. Meadow blossoms when she rose. Okay. And sort of along the same lines of children and school and that experience, when you're little. This is lifting lockdown. The first day back was like the first day of first grade, when we sat apart for the first time and glanced at each other longer than was safe. In that room, the teacher policed with stares not entirely her own. We were closer to wolves than boys and girls, which either meant everyone was a threat, or anyone could be your friend, depending. And you wouldn't know until you tried. Yeah. Okay. I've got too much material up here. I need to. Okay. Yes. So another book, this is a chapbook called Skeleton Says. It was published originally in 2010. And I had the good fortune of an excellent publisher with Nightjar Press, who re-released it, published a second edition. And the publisher's right over there, if anyone's interested in learning more about Nightjar Press. And I'm going to read one from this, because this is just out. And along the same lines of the passage of time, people we knew, people we still care about, although we're estranged or far removed. This is called Knocked Up, and there's an epigraph that is that are words. Well, I'll just say what it is. Knocked up for moments that slipped away before we knew they were beautiful. Geraniums in terracotta pots stacked on a steep stairwell by her house in the East Bay Hills made my throat itch. Her father played French horn in the Oakland Symphony. He did not like Lise going out with me, though at 14, I took her to the movies once. My mother agreed to drive. That was the last time. They sent me away, boarding school in the mountains, and Lise got knocked up. I saw her at a party once, maybe a couple years later. Didn't know it then, so I tried getting close, armed with kind words, a smile, hoping we might reconcile. I wanted to meet her father and mother formally. I was interested in the symphony, but she told me I was too late. Her mother had died of cancer, and in the storm that ensued, her father disowned her. We were 17 when I left her there, on a stone garden wall, alone under the jasmine trellis, burning. Okay. So this poem that I'm going to read is from Thousands Flee California Wildflowers. And when I was talking earlier about, sometimes you put together a collection and it's sort of like it doesn't really connect to anything else. It's just sort of like this thing. And it's, there's like voice and it takes you places that you didn't even know your imagination could go. But it also can be sort of a catalyst for reaching parts of you or stories that are very much grounded in your life or in experience, even though you're traveling far with your imagination. But this is actually a very literal piece, so it's not too far from the truth. Trajectory, and this is after Alex and Andy. It has been years, and I still smell bay laurels burning in the park. Still see you drifting the aisles of a mini-mart, lugging your case of brew. It's been 30 years since you rode off. I still struggle. The difficulty is like deciphering the scent of late summer jasmine or raspberry jello with vodka shots or Sensimilia smoke curling from the bong water. I want to say I was wrong, but your names always began with Y. Now I see you speeding down Oakland Avenue like black windflowers through a hedgerow. The cops are on you with blue and red lasers. Why number one, you were the drummer. Oh, how you admired your brother, 3 years your senior, and the lead guitarist in a garage band called Detour. And why number two, our leading rusher. We cheered for you until our lungs cramped. Then no one was there for the final snap, the handoff from black leather seat to slick asphalt. Had I been there, I would have kissed you and consoled your hysterical sisters. I would have kissed them too and steered you away from the bike before your last breathless flight into winter. All right, so something a little more fun, maybe. This is called Good Bones. I want a home with good bones, a bungalow from the 1920s, with mahogany columns and beaded wainscoting in the parlor. I want maple floors well worn from years of children's slippers, lath plaster, and an attic where boys hid airline liquor and pinups. I want a home with catacombs for walls, where the man of the house once stashed his mistress's many perfume letters. I want an oak front door with leaded glass transom, and a warped front porch which, when walked across, feels like sailing drunk. I want hand-hewn siding and a porch swing with braided ropes that creak to the cadence of my daydreams. I'd swing there for hours, sipping bourbon, spitting tobacco, squinting across the way toward the neighbor lady's upstairs bedroom window. And I'd raise my glass, the sun sinking through it, and watch the last of the day slowly undress those whitewashed spindles. The afterglow of history gently revealed on the many fine, weather-worn bones of my good home. So I was channeling, a Portland bungalow somewhere around here when I wrote that. There's so many great old homes in Portland and Milwaukee. So more on the passage of time, and this is, so the title is Los Alamos Weather Report, September 11th, 1938. Here the sun hangs like a fat man. A few black juncos riot in a gulch. Red globe mallows, late spring fission, lick and crosshatch the grass. Though no gadget gas, no smoke blast from twin terracotta chimney stacks, no telephone tone from what would become Bob and Kitty Oppenheimer's home on Bathtub Row. Here the headmaster hollers at the sickly sons of northeastern industrialists sent to the high desert to recover from TB. They lick liver from tin plates and excavate the Pueblo village. They stack blocks of orange basalt for battlements decked out with rifle, crenels, and arrow slots. This is the mute dip, the dry wash before the onslaught at Pearl Harbor, before Einstein's letter, before Roosevelt shuts the ranch school down and Oppenheimer's young physicists descend like white gnats on the red buttes of the Pajarito with those innocent maidens and armloads of blue-scrolled secrets. Has anyone else been to Los Alamos and seen the museum? It's fascinating, it really is. Okay. The town of widowers. Here, bush tits flock to the lattice work of dusk and soothe the fever. A train, disembodied from its whistle, pushes us along. The radio caught between stations is conversation. Some who live apart are less alone than those who live together. The half-life of a wish cannot be measured. Yet had we never met, I would miss you more. Here, the distance between solace and loneliness is the depth of the train's whistle. Okay. Us and them. When the power goes out, an older power switches on. Your heart pounds in the dark. The walls fade or fall away. The animal leaps from the wall and brushes against you. The cairns we leave behind, the moon knocks over. We frack and pollute. We lubricate earthquakes. The mind is the only object that can retain her bearings. Very soon, this will be a long time ago. I told you, time is passing. Time keeps moving. So, I think 2 more poems. Yeah. This is called History the Homemaker. History is independently wealthy. She has so many rooms, she's lost track. History is hoarse from having to repeat herself. She is losing her mind, yet has all the time in the world. History knows how worlds come to an end. She lived in a convent once, but was caught revising the scripture. History is a math wizard and believes in home remedies. History is not the Virgin Mary. She kicks the baby out with the father. History craves something savory for a late night snack. She hates the History Channel more than science fiction. History critiques the great British baking show reclining in a bath. She barters the family jewels for bourbon and hawks the silver for food. History prefers cardamom to cinnamon. When she cooks, her moods swing with Jupiter's moons. History has a habit of leaving the oven on. She's burned the house down so many times you'd think she does it for the rush. When time cannot save her, she rebuilds the house with iron and cedar and treats the linens with camphor. History was arrested once for shooting up fiction. Drunk, she revises her autobiography to cheer herself up. History knows all your secrets. She is the headmistress at the School of Hard Knocks. She does not wear pumps or grow her hair out for you. History loves allegory and wears paradox to the ball. She leaves early, something boiling at home. History cooks for armies. She fills your plate with more than you can eat. History knows the homeless are royalty. She keeps the leftovers warm for centuries. History is never alone. Her secret lover wears the old cologne. History leaves the door open. Thanks. So let's do poetry roulette. I'm going to read something from a long time ago that I'm going to find something I haven't read before. This is dangerous. Okay. No. Now I know why I haven't read them before. Oh. Okay. I actually read this at a high school graduation, and it's called Valedictory, and it wasn't my valedictory speech, but I was invited to speak to my alma mater, high school. So it's very short, valedictory for any graduating class. If you are not meant to follow, be unconventional in a mild-mannered way. Put yourself at risk emotionally and intellectually simultaneously. Take a leadership role. Say unpopular things while nodding insistently and lending a hand. Thank you.
So we're going to have a question and answer period now, and a chance to ask Scott some questions and hear his answers. And then he's going to end the reading tonight with a final poem. So we'll be there in a few minutes. And Kristen is going to bring the mic around. So wait for her. We'd like to get the question on the recording. We get the answer, but we don't always have the question. And so we've gotten some feedback about that. And is there someone who would like to start and has something burning that you want to ask Scott? And if not, I have a question, and I'd like to ask you to if you could talk a little bit more about writing your latest book. Part of the question is, when do you write? How do you write? How did that book come together for you?
You've asked me this question before, Tom, and I think what I've said before is that writing is just sort of opportunistic, and just when something occurs to me, I try to write it down. I'm not very disciplined about actually carving out time. And so this book that we're reading from tonight, actually a lot of the new poems in that book I wrote on my phone, or at least they started on the phone, because I needed to. I do a lot of thinking about this when I'm walking, and some of the poems, reflect that. So that's part of the process. But beyond that, and the idea for this book, I don't know where it came from. I really don't. I think I had some unfinished business. I knew that I wanted to say something about the passage of time and this notion of being grounded, and how those two can intersect or may not intersect, how they might just sort of, veer off from one another. So I think that was part of what I was thinking about when I put this together. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Scott. I just have a request for you. That poem that you called a sweet little poem, could you reread that? Could you do that? Is there time for that?
Yeah. I would be happy to read that again. Lake Effect. The night wind unwinds, rousing our neighbors' voices, the heat wave breaking. Remember the lake, stars swarming like caddisflies kissing the surface? The wind did not sleep, moving endlessly between overheated rooms of aspen and pine, seeking schist or granite slab, a place to lie down. Let's find some relief. Slip into bathymetric days. Let the breeze barter uncharted stars for night swimmers far from the dock. Let minnows caress our toes. Yep.
So Scott, I'm a writing the land poet too. So I
awesome.
want, and her name is Lise McLaughlin.
Lise McLaughlin,
Right.
thank you for, I needed some help.
It's hard to remember. I was curious when you said you worked with 3 people on that land. Did you collaborate together, or did you each individually move in your own directions?
They're individual efforts, yeah.
And did somebody help you tour the land when you did yours?
Yeah, and they were different sites, I believe. So I was at the Confluence site. I think Kristen was Green Island, and Brittany.
Oh, gotcha.
Anyway, it's in the collection. And we did have at least I had the conservationists with the trust tour the property, tour the area with me, and it was very helpful. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So this might be a little complicated and layered. I particularly felt directly addressed by your history poem and the valedictory poem. And sometimes it seems as if we are the guardians of time. When other people are busy forgetting, we're in charge of remembering. And sometimes time seems like the Irish spiral, where you just step from one layer to the other effortlessly, and sometimes maybe a group of doorways, and you never know when you're just going to cross one of the thresholds and be in that other place. So, with those thoughts, I wonder whether you could respond to your own experience with time and as a poet.
Well, poetry and just writing in general, I think, is a good exercise for remembering. what has occurred and not taking any of it for granted, but just, and it doesn't have to end up in a poem or a book, but just the process I think is valuable in that way. And I think writing has helped me remember who I am. And through all the different chapters and phases of one's life, it's easy to get sort of diverted, to go down a rabbit hole, or the grind of work, or a relationship that may be unhealthy. There's just so many different ways that we can lose track of time, and writing can be a spiritual practice too in that way, and so I think it's very important to me anyway, in that element of time. And not to make light of your question or your comment, I binge watched Doctor Who through the pandemic, and I just loved it. I love the whole time travel and the craziness of it, and so that's the fun and that I have with it too. Yeah. So.
Scott, congratulations on your recent wedding. I'd like to know, do you think that being married will influence your writing? Will that mean you gravitate more toward the relationship? What do you think?
I have a very demanding editor. No, it's just wonderful being partnered in life and also in poetry and writing, and to be able to share that love for the art and for one another. And I just feel I'm very happy, and ironically not writing as much, but that's not a criticism on anything. It's just maybe being content for a little bit, for a spell, is a good thing. Yeah. Thanks, Emmett.
So my introduction to Doctor Who was the library episode, or River Song, and it's like, you guys, I sobbed. So I had to watch the whole thing. I'm there with you on binging Doctor Who. It was excellent. But in that time travel, it's really emotional for the Doctor. So it's interesting that, you binged it and you're like time and grounding. And what I found about your writing that challenged me the most was that I was like, but is he happy or sad? Is it a bummer or isn't it? And I wanted to be told. But I think, and this was just my thinking while I'm listening to all of it, and I've, read, and I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, the point of your writing is to achieve mindfulness and grounding. It isn't one thing or the other. It's what it is in the moment. That was my takeaway from reading and then experiencing. And does that seem fair?
I appreciate that, Kristen. I think our poems or art, we have so little control over it to begin with, even though it's a very exacting art, writing. And then it goes out into the world, and hopefully someone picks it up and reads it. And it's meant to sort of be not a foil, but a mirror that we can hold up to ourselves and try to reflect on what it means. So there's no intentionality around darkness or joy or levity.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's both all at once. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, like, I felt like, oh, this person took a walk with this piece. That is what it felt like to me.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for reading it that closely. It means a lot. Yeah.
I was struck as you were reading that poem, Set on the Lake, for the second time, with this play with elements. Like, there's the water and there's that feeling of the wind, which is maybe why you asked for it again. But I'm just wondering if you could speak to like those elements at play in your work, and you're speaking about writing the land, so clearly that's a huge influence.
Yeah, thank you for asking. And the reason that I applied or pursued the Writing the Land project was that I gravitate toward sort of elemental things in the world, and I felt like I needed some goal or like something to like say, okay, you've got a project, and now you need to work on this. But what it did is it reminded me of why I went into land use planning, and why I also love poetry so much, because it's this intertwining of interpreting and using figurative language for something that others are using very scientific language to describe. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think even before that, even before I got involved with Writing the Land, I would use my background in geography and knowledge of things like natural history or curiosity about those things to study a place or to study a phenomenon or what's happening in the world, and inevitably that leads to, why is the Queen Anne's lace doing that? And it's pretty. Does it belong here? Does it matter that it's here? Those questions that just sort of come out of that observation. So I am curious about those things. So.
I can do mine up here. So,
Okay.
well, this is a comment, and one of the takeaways I have from the reading is that I was sitting here and I noticed that you smiling, having little smiles at all sorts of different things. And I took that as lots of little appreciations. I call it little appreciations. So you would look at a poem, it spurred some memory, you had a little appreciation about that. And that seems like a very interesting thing to me, and something that is helpful for our practice. So it's really a thank you for that.
Thank you for, and thank you for noticing that, because it didn't occur to me as I was reading, but I do feel a little spark when I'm, and writing too. That can happen, So, thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Do we have one more question? I think Emma's got another. Oh, no.
Scott, your poetry is absolutely gorgeous. The way you share it. I hear a technical proficiency in your poetry. I can hear the quatrain, the twist steps, I can hear the couple. I can hear the compounding of the consonants. And my question is that to have that kind of technical proficiency, but yet be able to marry the imagery, the thought, the things, do you struggle at any time with the technical proficiency of poetry and trying to say what you want to say in a poetic form?
Yeah. So, Em, and I think some focus or some start with an image, and others are starting from an idea, or I think I'm really energized or motivated by sound. So, like as I'm starting to write something, sometimes I'm just writing something that's not really a coherent thought, but the sound is it's a catalyst for the idea that might come, or the structure that would follow later. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think sound for me is the principal driver, but then everything else tries to form around it. Yeah.
Scott is going to end this
Yeah.
with a final poem.
I would be glad to. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, everyone, for really wonderful questions and engagement. So sometimes, and back to the earlier question from Kristen about, is it light or is it dark or where is it going? Well, this one is intentional, so you may actually be able to understand where I'm going with this. So, and this is the last poem in the book, Tender Currencies, and it's called Coda. It is a coda. When you are lost, let me be your island. When thoughts go dark, I am your range of light. When you have no words, I can be your words, like hands on sore shoulders, cool water on a blistering day. When you're cold, I'll be your shawl. When overworked, I'm your lunch break or your getaway car. When you say, I'm afraid, and even when you won't, I am here for you. If you are broke, I am a bundle of hundreds you find on the street. Look at me, one human to another. I am free for the taking, and I'm taking this moment to tell you, I love you so.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I mentioned the refreshments, so they're over here. Scott has books there, and if you want to look at those on the table. We will be hosting Ellen Waterston, the Poet Laureate, in January. So happy holidays to everybody. Thank you for being here. Hey, hey.